say that about the nuclear disarmament issue.
Over to TNEC, finally, for two questions from TNEC.
I'm Peter Todd. I'm a sophomore at FDU Metro. And my question is the UN's inability to enforce collective security a factor in achieving disarmament, both nuclear and conventional?
Ambassador Kamal, could you hear us here in Metro?
Yes.
Did you get that question?
Yes.
Okay, second question, please.
Yeah, hi. My name is Evan Mays, and I'm a junior here at the TNEC campus. And you guys, earlier you mentioned transparency as a key factor. What would the United Nations do to make sure that a country's not hiding anything?
Okay. Why don't you take both?
I was an undergraduate at University of Virginia, and there's a professor there named Innes Claude, who's an expert on international organizations. And he was also an expert on collective security. And he wrote one of the most trenchant critiques of collective security, saying how it's basically not workable. That as long as states are sovereign, and they insist on independence and sovereign control over their armed forces, there will never be an effective system of collective security, because no state will be willing to commit to use its armed forces for some uncertain future event without the consent of its country, including the legislatures. So that collective security has got some kind of it's a fundamentally flawed idea. Well, collective security is at the heart of the UN system, really, for maintaining international peace and security. The Security Council has the primary job of maintaining international peace and security. And in fact, collective security is one of the areas that is least developed, and it is most problematic in its implementation. And it all comes down to sovereignty, that states are unwilling to enter into binding commitments to use force in the future if something is violated. And so I guess I would have to. This is a very profound question you've asked. I would have to agree that the lack of a functioning system of collective security has hurt the future prospects for disarmament, insofar as much more needs to be done to promote the peaceful settlement of disputes between states. And I think that if we are able to have more success in that area, that it could have spillover effects that could make disarmament more likely to occur. But I would also argue, in contrast, that I think progress in disarmament itself will help in as a confidence-building measure in promoting perceptions of security locally as well. I think it's a two-way street, but it's a very good question. Now, would you like to? On the second question on transparency. Well, transparency. The International Atomic Energy Agency has statutory and treaty responsibilities to implement safeguards over peaceful nuclear activities. The IAEA, however, has no jurisdiction to be the world's monitor of non-proliferation. They don't have a mandate to go and look for bomb programs. They don't have a mandate to. They don't have any unique weapons expertise, or they're not the World Disarmament Agency. What they do is to confirm peaceful uses of nuclear materials, and so they have a very limited mandate. Now, on the 24th of October, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon made a speech in the UN where he proposed a nuclear disarmament proposal. And for transparency, he asked that the nuclear weapon states start using the UN Secretariat as a repository for information on what they are doing to achieve their own stated nuclear disarmament goals. And this means reporting to the world community on how many nuclear weapons they have, stocks of fissile materials, and specific concrete steps that they have taken to implement their own nuclear disarmament commitments. So the basic function here that the Secretary General was proposing is simply that we provide a common global repository for information on what progress is being made. We're not calling for the UN to go and be an inspectorate, to go in and visit nuclear weapon labs and inspect. This is not at all what is envisaged here. We're talking about a simple registry or data bank of information on this. And it's a way of helping to reassure the world that there actually is progress on disarmament going on in a common way. It's a good question. I thank you for asking it.
we are coming slowly to the close of our time, but I'd like to ask you a supplementary arising out of this last answer. After a period of relative absence of disarmament from the stage, and there are many proofs of the fact that disarmament was not a priority. It was not a priority because in the Millennium Summit, the final document does not use the word disarmament anywhere. The Millennium Development Goals, which are supposed to be the strategic goals for the UN up to the year 2015, does not use the word disarmament anywhere. The fact that we, at the end of the Cold War, were talking about something called the disarmament dividend, and we never saw it because it was a sort of a non-existent thing. Point number two. Point number three, the 60th anniversary summit, heads of state got together, issued a final document, the word disarmament does not occur. So disarmament was not on the screen until suddenly you get President Obama turning up with his ideas, and everybody suddenly started talking about disarmament, and we don't know whether it is for real or whether it is fake. And we saw that at the summit of the Security Council, it was more about nuclear non-proliferation than about disarmament. But even nuclear non-proliferation is not on the cards. The United States has signed a proliferation treaty with India. And that proliferation treaty with India is inevitably going to set off an arms race in South Asia, and therefore you are going to see proliferation elsewhere. We do not yet know what is the problem of Iran, except that even though Iran has said we are not going for nuclear weapons, and their highest political authorities have said so, the fact remains that Iran has got Israel, a nuclear weapon state, on the left, Pakistan and India, nuclear weapon states, on the right, Russia, a nuclear weapon state, in the north, and the American 7th Fleet as a nuclear weapon state in the south. And so Iran is encircled by nuclear weapons. If you were Iran, what would be your thinking process? Now, so my question is, all this is very nice, the Department of Disarmament and the Secretary General talking about the way he talks on the 24th of October. But is this for real? Are you really telling us that disarmament is on the cards? Or are you just justifying your own salary as a staff member of the Department of Disarmament? Do you have a vested interest? I think you have a conflict of interests here between salary and objective.
Well, in terms of allocation of resources, I think maybe the best thing to do would be to just point out that in 2009, the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute estimates that the world spent about $1.4 trillion on weapons. By comparison, I'd like to say that our own little office for disarmament affairs in the Secretariat has a budget of around $10 million a year for 50 people. That's less than the price of one F-16 jet fighter.